Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, the upcoming Marvel fighting game done by Arc System Works. As a Marvel fan, I'm super excited for this game and its roster. So let's predict said roster. Before this though, let me inform you on the fighting game archetypes and different teams that are featured in the game. You have Shotos like characters like Ryu, Mario, and Soul Bad Guy. Then there's zoners like Dawson, JP, and Guile. Grapplers like Zangief, Potemkin, and King. Rushdowns like Yunaga, Taukaka, and every character in Fighter Z. Puppets like Zato, Nier, and Rosalina. Mix up in set play like Snake, Bedman, and Peacock. Now that we've gone over the play styles, let's talk about the different confirmed characters and their teams. For confirmed characters, we have the first X-Men team, which includes Wolverine, Storm, Danger, and Magic. Now for all the unfinished teams, and soon-to-be prediction teams, we have Iron Man and Captain America making up the Avengers, Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel being the Street Heroes, Doom for villains, Ghost Rider for the Midnight Suns, and Star-Lord for the Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, now we can go into the predictions, starting with our first heroes filling up the base roster. Okay, it's obvious we're getting a Hulk, and I think getting base Hulk is the most likely and most realistic. He could be a grappler, consisting of auto grabs, manual grabs, rock throws, and basic attacks. However, if Hulk is on your team, you activate this ability when you die, called Green Gate. You can only use this on death when you're in a 4 to 6 match ratio. This revives Hulk, leaving him on a small amount of health. Only Hulk is revived on your team. Okay, I trust Wonder Man to round up the Avengers team because I have other plans for Thor. Anyways, Wonder Man can fully manipulate himself for his powers. He would play as a bruiser, having similar gameplay to Ms. Marvel, but hard knockback. There's not much to talk about even with his expansive powers because they're just so general, if anything. So let's go into our next team. The next team that we'll be going over will be the Street Heroes, with one hero in the base roster. Daredevil is the blind street hero who actually doesn't have powers, just using billy clubs and enhanced senses. Within his gameplay, he could be a strong rushdown, similar to Baiken from Guilty Gear Strive. He could be able to pull the opponent to himself and push them away. One of his unique traits could be to blind the opponent, as he is blind himself, making the opponent's controls inverted for a small amount of time. Now, we're going to move to our one member of the Guardians of the Galaxy that is in the base roster. I've always hated that Rocket was playable in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and 4, and Groot wasn't. So let's make Groot a playable character, and Rocket be the one riding atop him. Groot would be a tanky, zoning mix-up character, able to perform specials where Rocket can set off traps and shoot blasts, while Groot can strike the opponent with his branches, dragging them over, or pushing them back, or even sending little seed bombs at them. For a unique trait, I could see one of their assist abilities being Groot planting a flower in the ground, and if you run into it, you get a small amount of healing. And this happens to your entire team, of course, but if your opponents get hit by this flower, then they'll get a small amount of poison damage on them. Now let's go over our next base roster character being part of the Midnight Sun. Blade is a daywalker, meaning he is half vampire and is able to walk within the day. His moveset would be a heavy rushdown with large range, just like Nagoriyuki from Guilty Gear Strive. And just like Nagoriyuki, he would have a blood gauge. When dealing damage, the meter would fill, and when he's full, he gets full, he heals a bit of health and gains a big buff to his attacks and gains more rage. I didn't mention Gwenpool, but she will be starting off the joke character team, and the joke characters will come periodically and randomly throughout the video, rounding up their team. I'll give them no introduction, unlike the other teams, they'll just randomly appear, so stay tuned for those characters when they appear. Okay, so let's get into Gwenpool. I doubt that Deadpool would honestly be base roster, and I feel like Gwen has a higher chance of getting in, mostly because Deadpool was actually in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and he also is in Marvel Rivals now, and Gwenpool does need a bit of spotlight. She could play as a bruiser, having her swords as her primary, and being able to summon Jeff for different specials. I could see her gameplay being similar to Meg from Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising, having a summon with Jeff, and choosing different abilities for Jeff to use. Okay, now let's move into our 3 villains of this roster. Let's start off with our first villain being from space. Is a clear pick. After being introduced into the MCU, he's become a huge character within Marvel culture. Many of his moveset would revolve around the stones and the different special abilities that they would be able to have. Each stone would have a different special ability that you could switch between, making him a strong mix-up. Each stone's abilities are as follows: the Space Stone, small teleportation backward or forward; the Power Stone, base attacks; the Soul Stone, summon skeletons from the ground to run on the opponent; Mind Stone, the grabs; the Time Stone, go back to an older position where you were at in the battle. Blackheart is the villain representing the Midnight Suns. Even if he's not a direct villain to them, he makes sense in his theming. If you're too young to know who Blackheart is, ask your parents. They've most likely seen him in Marvel vs. Capcom. Surprisingly, with all of his energy manipulation abilities, I actually see him playing as a grappler. He could grab the opponent and absorb their health, just like Shumagorath in Marvel vs. Capcom, summon souls to rush the opponent and throw opponents at a hard wall. Now I really wanted an X-Men villain, and I debated on a couple. The main one I was going to go with was Magneto, but why have Magneto when we could have a cooler one? Onslaught! If you don't know who Onslaught is, Magneto and Professor X's powers merge together, making an insanely overpowered being, capable to absorb powers. So of course he's going to be a grappler and zoner just like Potemkin in Guilty Gear. He can manipulate his opponents, dragging them over, lifting the breeze and throwing it, and send off large shockwaves coming out of his body. Okay, now that we've rounded up the base roster, it's time for everybody's favorite thing within a video game: microtransactions. I'm not going in order here of possible waves. Instead, we're just going to round up the unfinished groups, so let's finish up each team so far, starting off with our street team, followed up by the other teams we're going to be finishing up. I can see Cloak and Dagger being a strong puppet character, with Dagger being the main fighter. When Dagger uses a special, she summons Cloak. Now he's a part of every attack until the duration of his timer runs out, just like Death with Nier and Granblue. Anyways, Dagger would be a zoner, sending light daggers of course to attack the opponents, while Cloak in the specials would be a mix of a grappler and a bruiser, grabbing opponents and holding them down for Tandy to combo on them, and also pushing away opponents so Tandy can do some zoning attacks. Now, let's round up the Guardians of the Galaxy with these 2 characters. I decided to not go with the traditional Guardians of the Galaxy and make it more fun, so Adam Warlock is here. He's actually gonna have some movement in this game unlike Rivals. Let's all not act like that flying buff did something. His still, as Queso says,
"For slow is Christmas, you understand me?"
I see Adam Warlock being a great zoner, able to shoot off beams from his staff and strike with it. Adam Warlock's ability would be if you have a full super meter when downed, you can revive again, wasting the entire meter to get 25% health back again, and being able to only play as your core character, being the first character that you actually pick before playing the game. Phyla-Vell is a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the comics sometimes, and has way more interesting abilities than Drax, Gamora, and Mantis. Her powers are super strength, flight, immense speed, hydra ability, energy manipulation, energy absorption, and construction. I see Phyla-Vell being a strong rushdown with some form of set play in her kit. If someone gets too close to her when she doesn't want, she could set off an energy blast that needs to be recovered after a certain amount of time. This knocks them back very far when doing so. Okay, now it's time to round up our joke character team with everybody knowing the infamous Squirrel Girl defeated Doom, Galactus, and Thanos. It's clear Doreen wasn't always fully written to be a joke character, but then she fully evolved into this with her different adaptations over time, with new iterations being able to take her abilities so far as to her being able to take down characters while not being on the comic panel. She would play like a zoner, having squirrels to throw at opponents, trapping them with squirrels and snares, or shooting an acorn off the opponent's forehead just like Teemo. Her super is obviously I bet you're wondering how Howard the Duck could even play. If you're older, wondering how the hell is he even a Marvel character? Well, I give you Marvel Strike Force, the mobile fighting game that desperately needs a console version and desperately needs to be way better. He could use his mech like he does in that game, shooting off missiles, bombs, and throwing punches. I know most of you don't know Duke, but I love him. He's such a goofy character and makes perfect sense as a joke character. I chose him over Deadpool since we already have Gwen, and Deadpool's in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and is a joke character in that game. Surprisingly, Duke would play as a zoner. It would take things out of his body and stretch just like Dawson. I could see Duke having abilities and being able to copy other characters' moves like Double in Skullgirls. I want to clarify something also. Not every joke character has to necessarily be bad. They just need to be funny. Take Roll, Phoenix Wright, and Kuma for example. All three are clearly joke characters with their design, play style, and not being the norm of the game that they're in. However, they're fun, powerful, and give a better experience. Now let's cover the last members of the Midnight Suns. Elsa Bloodstone is the daughter to the immortal Ulysses Bloodstone and carries his legacy as a monster hunter. She's a weapons master, having many rifles and shotguns. I see her being a strong zoner like Caitlyn in 2XKO, having set play but being mostly utilized for zone play. In one of her supers, she can summon her brother to maul the opponent. Man-Thing was made from swamp matter mixed with chemicals being injected into Ted Salas. I could honestly see Man-Thing playing as a support role on his team, with his team getting stronger and him being a bruiser and buffing them just like Amigo in Marvel vs. Capcom. With his assists, he could allow buffing abilities to all of his teammates, and he would be able to drag the opponent over and push them away, just like Omega Red in Marvel vs. Capcom. Now we'll talk about our next team, Wave 2 for the X-Men. Cyclops is a no-brainer pick, and I'm surprised they chose Magic and Danger over him in Space roster. Cyclops is a clear zoner, most of his main specials being beams of course, simple character. However, for a special ability, when his meter builds up, he could release a mini super, taking off his goggles and shooting a large beam. Who better to pair Cyclops with than his wife Jean Grey? better known as Phoenix. Of course, she has fire powers and plays a powerful rushdown. When she gets full meter, she can become Dark Phoenix, having stronger attacks and better mobility. Who better to round up the X-Men team other than Gambit and Rogue? Of course, they'd be separate characters, of course, so let's go over Gambit first. Gambit would be a zoner, capable of throwing cards and attacking from far away. He could throw out a card and then detonate them manually at any time for a strong combo. Then Rogue. She's a big tanky rushdown character, capable of lifesteal to give her some health. Now, for our next team, the robotic villains. The Sentinel is a clear choice to represent the X-Men as a robotic villain. I bet you're wondering, why not Omega Red? Yes. Anyways, sadly the children of the Atom design won't be available since this is owned by Capcom, so we can go with the natural variation seen in a couple games, or the Ultimate Alliance variation. But I don't want any ordinary Sentinel, no. I want the Infinity Sentinel. The Infinity Sentinel is like any normal Sentinel, except this one is powered by the Power Stone. He'd have basic abilities, being a large bruiser. Lore-wise, his code would be changed so he doesn't attack Onslaught. Ultron is a clear villain here because he's one of the most iconic technical villains ever. I think his MCU design can never match the look in the comments, and he should keep his design, not changing him to look like a crazy Gundam like Iron Man. Anyways, he could use beams and even hack the opponents like Lucy and Guilty Gear. His hacks could be activated whenever he does a counterattack, adding a small debuff. For a unique ability, he could summon Ultron bots to dash the opponent, like Lord Zed in Battle for the Grid. The Fantastic Four are not on this list, but I needed 2 scientists to round up this team. So, who better to represent the Fantastic Four as a villain than the Maker? Of course, he played the same way as a possible Reed Richards would, just like a zoner like Dhalsim from Street Fighter. To perform different than Reed Richards' possible playstyle, he could use gadgets like traps to stun the opponent, and even wrap his arms around them to stun them as well. The Lizard is a great representation for the street team for a scientific villain. I think he could be a strong rushdown like Unica and Warwick. He could have some strong grabs and tail swipes. I think he could also have some cool gameplay with regeneration, where if you have a full meter, you could use that to heal. Not full health though, of course. Now, onto our last team here, being the Gods Blessed team. Characters who are gods and who are blessed by them. El Muerte is the Mexican wrestler taking an ancient lucha libre mask of El Dorado, wearing in his wrestling matches, giving him enhanced strength. I think he could play as a cool grappler, of course. Anyways, I see him having similar abilities to Incineroar and Smash, being a flashy fighter in the battlefield. Moon Knight is the avatar of the Egyptian god Khonshu. Moon Knight could be a zoner, using his crescent darts and throwing onks. These onks will work like they do in Rivals, attracting the darts. If you have a full super meter, you can change the moon cycle, leaving Moon Knight at low health. When killed, Khonshu says,
"Get up, my fist."
Mark Steven Jake arises with little health and automatically activates an unblockable super.
The moon haunts you.
Thor is the god of thunder, and these were the plans I had for him later on. Of course, Mjolnir is his main weapon he uses. He has a small electric meter like in Rivals, dictating the power of his attacks. For example, he would have a lightning beam attack. At level 1, it's natural. Level 2, he does area damage, even when it doesn't hit you. And at level 3, he does a small stun. Angela is our last pick in this roster. Angela would be a rushdown zoner, similar to Unica from Guilty Gear. She would use her spears for zoning, and then she would use her axes for up-close damage. For her super, she could do the same one from Rivals. If it sticks to the wall or stage, the opponents would be dragged to it and stunned for a duration of time. So, what do you think? Are these characters we could get in Tokon? I hope. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. New one next month. See you in the next one.